Have you ever sat down to consider the myriad of things that could go wrong while starting up a business?
And more importantly, have you thought about how you could prevent those mishaps?
Navigating the terrain of startup life is not a piece of cake. It's demanding, exhausting, and quite frankly scary at times.
Sure is. And the ever-looming cloud of potential failure can sometimes end up redefining the entire experience.
But here's the thing we often forget in the face of the fear. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that truly counts.
Well put, Riley. Speaking from my experiences, and after having conversed with many others who have tread on this path, I for one can assure you, there is so much more to starting up than just the fear of failure.
Absolutely. For today's episode, we're going to tap into that very notion. Instead of being paralyzed by fear, how about we learn from the past and prepare for the future?
Indeed. In this segment, we're going to talk about some of the most common mistakes that startup founders tend to make, and, more importantly, how you can strategize to avoid falling into these pitfalls.
Let's remember, every failure is a step to success. It's about understanding where we went wrong and ensuring we don't repeat the same mistake. Let's dive into a story of a startup, shall we? They had an innovative product idea that could have been game-changing, yet they fell flat on their face, hard. Why? Because they didn't do market research.
Just to clarify, by market research we mean studying and understanding who your customers are, what they want, how your product can meet their needs.
Spot on. And this company failed because they ignored the essentials. Identifying your target customers, understanding their needs, their pains, also the market trends and the competitive landscape. They developed a product nobody needed. Imagine the loss.
That's dire. They worked on their project, putting in countless hours of thought and resources, only to realize that there was no demand for their product.
It's quite heartbreaking when you look at it. But it's also a straightforward reminder of how essential market research is before you kickstart your venture. Not only it validates your ideas, but it also gives you a clear direction.
Exactly. Conducting market research ahead of time can prevent a lot of future heartache. And perhaps venture capital heartache as well.
One key factor in market research is understanding your customer demographics.
Customer demographics, meaning their age, gender, income, education level, right?
Right. And also their geographical location, employment status, marital status, and even their hobbies or interests. These factors can impact consumer behavior and preference. For example, a tech gadget may sell well among tech-savvy millennials living in metropolitan cities.
So how can startups effectively identify customer demographics?
Through a combination of primary and secondary research. Primary research involves interacting directly with potential customers and gathering data yourself, like surveys, interviews, or focus groups. Secondary research, on the other hand, is about utilizing existing research and data, like census data, trade journals, online databases, and more.
Interesting. And once they've identified their target demographics, how should startups use this data?
It's about what you do with the data, not just collecting it. Startups must strategize and tailor their product based on the insights. For example, if your target customers are young parents, your product development, marketing, and sales strategy should reflect that. Remember, it's not about the product you want to sell, it's about the product your customers want to buy.
And if the data shows that there's no market for the product?
Well, then it's time for a pivot or a product alteration. But that's not a bad thing. It's a chance for the startup to adapt and create something there's a clear demand for. But it's crucial to get these customer demographic insights early on.
You know, Riley, we've talked about the importance of targeting the right market and understanding customer demographics by conducting proper market research. Unfortunately, many founders fail to realize these are just stepping stones towards building a successful startup.
What's next? You have the market data and your product's idea, then what?
That's where focus and strategy come in. Knowing your target market and product is not enough. A startup has to keep its focus intact and have a clear strategy following their business plan to keep them on track. One common pitfall I've seen some startups fall into is losing focus and getting swept away in the tide of shiny object syndrome.
Shiny object syndrome?
Yes. It refers to the attraction to new things, like a kid in a candy store. In the startup world, it translates as chasing new ambitions, pivoting too often, or shifting the core focus of the business, which ultimately leads the venture astray.
Sounds like a fatal mistake.
Indeed it is. In fact, one startup I know dove into an entirely new market without a clear strategy, just because the trend was hot at the time. They lost their focus, their original customers, and ultimately, their business. The takeaway here is, it's vital to have a solid strategy and stick to it. Of course, slight adjustments or pivots might be needed along the way, but the core focus of the business should never fade.
Got it? Focus on the core of the business. Don't get lured by every new opportunity that comes along.
Exactly. And to maintain that focus, one must have a thoroughly mapped strategic plan from the very beginning. It should act as their navigation system guiding them towards their destination. Yes, so as entrepreneurs, having a roadmap with all your strategies laid out is essential. But how rigid should this roadmap be, Riley?
It's a fine line. While rigidity can provide a sense of certainty, it can also lead to stagnation and unresponsiveness. On the other hand, flexibility allows for adaptation and growth, but too much of it can result in that shiny object syndrome we talked about.
Absolutely. The key lies in being able to change course when necessary, but with a discipline. An entrepreneur must have the capability to realign their strategies as the business environment or markets evolve. They should constantly question if their strategic path aligns with the ultimate goals of their business. If the answer is no, then it's time to reassess and readjust the focus.
Exactly. Assess, realign, and make sure your strategies are still aiming towards your goals. But Richard, how can businesses maintain that balance between being focused and retaining the flexibility to adapt?
Well, the first strategy is to establish a focused business plan with some room for adjustment. The plan should include a vision, a mission, and a value proposition that defines the startup's purpose and the problem it's trying to solve. At the same time, the plan should also include scenarios anticipating how markets, customers, or technology could change, with corresponding adjustments to ensure the company remains on target.
Sounds like staying nimble and adaptable without losing the sense of purpose is key to striking that balance.
Absolutely. And remember, remaining committed to your goals doesn't mean ignoring the changes in the business environment. Your strategies should serve as your guiding light and not act as chains that hold you back. Being flexible, staying focused, and maintaining strategic alignment is the method to succeed.
Continuing from our last point, let's discuss another potential pitfall that startups often stumble into: unrealistic estimations. I am reminded of a startup that had a brilliant idea, an app that connected tutors with students in need of help.
Oh yes, that does sound like a great idea. Where did they go wrong?
Ironically, their downfall was steeped in their ambitions. They aimed to go global within the first year of operation. However, they grossly underestimated the resources and time it would take to make that happen.
They bit off more than they could chew then?
Exactly, Richard. Their estimations were far too optimistic. They failed to account for the time it takes to understand foreign markets, for their product to gain traction, and for the resources needed to manage a global operation.
So if, say, an entrepreneur is setting ambitious goals, what's the healthy way to go about it?
The first step in goal setting is to ensure they're realistic and achievable. Also, it's crucial to understand that anticipation and execution are two different aspects of business. You may have a stellar idea for your startup, but it's important to have a proper execution strategy that aligns with your capabilities and resources.
So don't count your chickens before they hatch, right?
In a nutshell, yes. Building a startup is like running a marathon, not a sprint. It takes persistence, patience, and a clear understanding of one's limits.
From our conversation about unrealistic estimations, it's a perfect segue into our next topic: execution capabilities. I believe ideas are important, but alone they are not the be-all and end-all of entrepreneurship. It's the execution that brings ideas to life, and that's frequently underestimated in the startup world. Take this story, for example. It's about a tech startup that developed an innovative solution for noise reduction in urban environments.
Sounds promising, Richard. What happened?
Well, Riley, The idea itself was fantastic, but the execution was underwhelming. Despite acquiring significant initial investment, their execution capabilities lagged behind. They struggled with product development issues, took too long bringing the product to market, and couldn't meet the promises they made to their customers and investors.
So despite a groundbreaking idea and heavy investment, they still failed because of poor execution?
Exactly. So, here's a crucial takeaway for our listeners. The execution of a business idea is as significant as the idea itself, if not more. Functioning prototypes, efficient processes, capable teams, all these elements contribute to successful execution.
I guess it's not just about having a great idea. The hard work comes in turning that idea into a reality. Any suggestions on how to improve execution capabilities, Richard?
Sure, Riley. Here's a few tips. First, ensure that your team is capable and committed to the same vision. Second, establish realistic timelines based on your resources and past experiences. Third, perfect your product with testing and refinement before a full launch. And always have a contingency plan should things not go according to plan.
Let's look at the truth that startups often ignore because of their initial momentum: adaptation to change. A startup's environment is never constant. It's continuously exposed to various external factors. Regulatory policy changes, consumer behavior shifts, or even progress like new technologies can significantly impact a startup. Unfortunately, not all startups have resilience baked into their business models. Take the example of this high-profile health tech startup, for instance.
Interesting. What happened?
Well, they had a unique initiative, heavily focused on breakthrough hardware to revolutionize health tracking. However, they overlooked how quickly customer preferences for non-invasive health tracking solutions were evolving.
So their solution became obsolete while still in development.
Exactly. Their refusal to adapt their vision to trends led to their downfall. They stayed fixated on their initial product idea and failed to pivot or innovate in line with user preferences.
It's tragic to see such a promising startup fail. Adaptation sounds vital, but it must be a difficult task to accomplish when you're already knee-deep in product development, isn't it?
It's certainly challenging, but it's also crucial. Startups need to build an adaptable business model from the get-go. Continual consumer and market research, flexible operational processes, and a culture embracing change are some measures that can help navigate these challenges. Adapting to change isn't about abandoning your vision. Rather, it's about evolving your strategies to achieve that vision.
Ever had a startup fail because it underestimated its competition? Well, that's exactly what happened to a startup that focused on revolutionary sleep technology. They had an innovative product that solved a significant problem. But their downfall was not recognizing the potential of their competitors. This startup assumed they had a monopoly in their niche field. However, they overlooked the fact that larger, more established AI companies were slowly moving into their turf.
Those bigger companies already had the funds and resources to compete effectively, I suppose.
Exactly, Riley. They underestimated the advantage big corporations had: money, established connection, and brand. Not to mention, those larger companies may have the capacity for faster innovation and quicker market penetration. This startup got blindsided by the quick entry and domination of these bigger fish in their pool. They were overtaken before they could fully establish themselves.
The competition battlefield in startups sounds pretty ruthless.
It can be, and that's why understanding your competition is crucial for survival. You need to recognize your competitors' strengths and weaknesses and develop strategic countermeasures. Determine their product features, business models, and strategies. Stay updated with the industry trends. An analysis like this can reveal gaps in the market that you can fill. Even formulating a unique value proposition, something that sets you apart from others, can give you a competitive edge. It's all about leveraging your strengths and their weaknesses to your advantage.
That's a raw yet realistic take on competition in business. Thinking about the lifeblood of startups, it's not just innovative idea or strong team. It's also about careful financial management. Too many startups ignore this pivotal aspect. Their primary focus gets deviated towards product development or marketing. Unsurprisingly, ignoring cash flow realities leads to dire consequences in their startup journey.
So, Riley, are there any effective tools or systems startups can use to manage their financial health better?
Absolutely, Richard. One basic rule is keeping a tight lid on cash burn rate, because running out of cash means game over for your startup. Track your in and outflow meticulously, understand the pattern, calculate average, and try to predict future cash flow. Startups can use financial management software like QuickBooks or FreshBooks to simplify their bookkeeping process. These tools provide a real-time view of your cash landscape and offer detailed reports, helping startups make informed financial decisions.
That sounds useful, especially for startups that might not have a dedicated finance department yet. How about the lack of financial knowledge? I believe it is pretty common among founders, especially those from non-business backgrounds.
It's a valid concern, Richard. Gaining adequate financial literacy is essential for startup founders. Participating in business and financial management courses or even self-learning via online resources can make a significant difference. It's not just about understanding your numbers, it's about understanding your business. Remember, poor financial management can lead to problems you can't bounce back from. Entrepreneurs need to gain financial literacy, plan properly, keep monitoring it, and pivot when necessary. These steps will not only keep your startup alive, but also set it up for success.
Don't you wonder why some killer ideas with great execution just seem to fade into oblivion, Riley?
It is a head-scratcher for sure. Any insights you might have, Richard?
An often overlooked element is the role of marketing. There's a notion among some founders, especially the tech-oriented ones, that if they create a superior product, it would simply sell itself.
The infamous "if we build it, they will come" mindset.
Exactly. It's a dangerous myth to live by. Sure, I understand the appeal. As a founder, you're passionate about your product and believe everyone will recognize its brilliance, but the hard reality is not everyone is going to see it, or even know it's there unless you do the work to get it in front of them.
Can you shed more light on this using one of the failed startups you know as a case in point?
FitFinder is a stark example of this, an app that offered personalized workout plans tailored to your body type and fitness goals. Indeed, a potentially life-changing product in an era where everyone wants to live healthier. But the founders were so focused on creating a perfect product that they forgot to market it. They launched with a bang, but without any brand recognition or audience engagement, the buzz quickly died down.
So, basically they built an amazing product that nobody knew about?
Right. Unless we're talking about hidden treasure, out of sight, out of mind, holds. It's a lesson entrepreneurs need to internalize. A great product without effective marketing is likely to flounder. And don't restrict yourself to traditional advertising. In this digital age, social media platforms can be a real game changer. From Facebook advertising to Instagram influencers, startups have more ways than ever before to reach a targeted audience with engaging content. Neglecting those avenues could be a make or break mistake.
You know, Richard, while discussing startup failures, there's one element which we haven't discussed yet, and it's incredibly vital. Any guesses on what it might be?
I'm thinking mentors or advisors.
Bingo. The absence of mentors or advisors can often lead to a downfall, even for the most promising ventures.
I see. Can you explain more about the significance of mentorship in a startup?
Sure. So the first thing we need to understand is that building a startup is no easy task. The founder is often caught up in a whirlwind of responsibilities, and without a mentor, they can get overwhelmed.
And how can the mentors or advisors help?
For starters, mentors provide invaluable perspectives to the founders. They often have years of experience under their belt and can guide the founders when it comes to making tough decisions. Not to forget, they can provide a reality check when the founders are being too optimistic or pessimistic. And lastly, mentors have the power to open doors. They can introduce the startups to their extensive network and help them get the right exposure. So, it's imperative for startups to actively seek mentorships.
And how can a startup establish these relationships?
I'd tell them to seek out connections, attend networking events, and don't be shy about reaching out to potential mentors, even if they seem out of reach. It may take some time, but bear in mind that the right mentorship can greatly enhance the decision-making process of the startup, and the benefits are truly priceless.
All right, so we've covered how absence of mentorship can potentially lead a startup down the path of failure. It's time we pivot a little and steer this conversation towards another crucial, absolutely crucial, success factor: the team. And Riley, I am sure you would agree with me on this.
Definitely, Richard, you're spot on. As cliché as it may sound, team truly does make the dream.
That's exactly what I think. Let me add some context into that. I remember a startup, a promising one, had patented technology, a great market to cater, and resources. But, here is the but. They went belly up within 2 years.
That must be disappointing. What happened, Richard?
Well, it came down to one major flaw in their foundation, their team. There were disagreements and clashes among the board. Top talents started leaving, and soon it was a freefall. The technology was solid, but the people handling it were not.
That's a good point, Richard. Strong teams, just like strong castles, can withstand the storms. Ignoring this truth can be disastrous.
It can, indeed. So first thing is recruitment. Startups should not just hire to fill a position, they must have a clear criteria. Skills, of course, top the chart, but culture fit and attitude are equally important.
Good point, Richard. What's next?
Retention. Employees need to feel valued and appreciated. Positive working environments and opportunities for growth and learning are essentials.
So it's not enough to just get them in the door.
Absolutely not. Now, let's talk diversity and inclusivity. A variety of backgrounds and perspectives can give the startup an edge.
So having a balanced, skilled, and inclusive team holds the key.
Exactly so, Riley. It's one of those golden rules that any startup cannot afford to ignore.
Richard, we have taken our listeners through a range of common mistakes committed by startup founders. Any inbox messages or voicemails posing questions we can dive into?
We do have a few. There's one from Tim in Chicago. He's been talking about this concept he's developing, and his question is, in my startup, I want to cater to a niche market. Is this a safe bet, or should I look for a broader market? Mind giving it a shot, Riley?
That's a great question, Tim. Targeting a niche market can indeed be a safe bet because you understand your target customer more intimately. However, ensure you have done your homework and the market is large enough to provide profitable scale.
A crucial point there, Riley. Another question here is from Alice in London. She asks, how can startups build adaptability into their business model? How about this one, Richard? Adaptability in a business model. Great question, Alice. It's about maintaining a balance between commitment to your initial strategy and a flexible approach to accommodate new market developments. Stay informed about trends, customer behavior, and continuously iterate.
Excellent response, Richard. And to add to that, encourage an open culture inviting new ideas and perspectives. Don't be afraid of change, embrace it.
You heard it from Riley. Embrace change. Lastly, we have Sam from Sydney asking, how can I ensure my team is strong and dynamic?
Sam, a solid team isn't just about collecting high-level skills. It's about matching these skills with the right attitude, creating a culture of learning, celebrating diversity, and making each team member feel valued. Remember, teamwork makes the dream work.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Great final note, Riley. That wraps up our Q&A for today.
As we wrap up, Richard, our journey with these failures and lessons learned has shown us how intense and unforgiving startup life can be. From product development to marketing strategies, startups are a battleground where every decision matters.
You're right, Riley. It's essential for our listeners to remember that these startups who failed, they also had great ideas, maybe even groundbreaking ones. But a great idea is just a starting point. Execution and adaptability are the real champions here.
I agree. And it doesn't stop there. Acknowledging potential pitfalls early can save you from major setbacks later. One can't overstate the importance of a strong team, adequate market research, and a robust financial plan in a startup's journey.
That's a crucial reminder. No course is set in stone. Being prepared for detours and adapting to the highs and lows, it's all part and parcel of the startup journey. And who knows, the next big thing might be just around the corner.
Absolutely. Each startup story, even the failed ones, teach us valuable lessons. Embrace them, learn from them, and remember, it's not the fall that defines you, but how you bounce back.
Couldn't have put it better myself, Riley. Entrepreneurs, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to struggle. And it's okay to feel like giving up sometimes. What's essential is that you get back up, refine your plan with the lessons learned, and try again. Because Without hurdles to conquer, where's the fun in the journey?